evening, everyone, and welcome back. This is WrestleZone Unfiltered, and man, we got a loaded show tonight. The wrestling world didn't slow down this week. We are talking about an injury that might have changed WrestleMania season, a third injury, I should say. Talking about a legend getting his flowers the right way. Talking about chaos in AEW, and we're asking the real questions about where some of these stories are actually going to go forward slightly. And AJ Styles got a send-off that I felt he earned, not manufactured. Bronson Reed, he's on the fucking shelf. Division, who knows what's going on with them. MJF and Hangman turning the coin toss into a Texas death match. And the road tightens toward WrestleMania. The cat wants to get involved. The margin for error is shrinking. We are not here to hype it. We're here to break it down. Let's get into it. Paul, how are you doing on this glorious evening?
My knees hurt. I'm an old man. Let's move on.
Ain't we all? Ain't we all? All right, look. I'm gonna pull the Danny, even though she's not here. Everybody say hello to Nezzy. Hi, Nezuko. That's my Demon Slayer.
Uh-oh.
For any of you gamers out there. And no, I did not name her. That was she's one of my daughter's two last rescues, and that's what she named her, was Nezuko the Demon Slayer. So there she is. Well, let's get into this, man. What do you want to start with tonight?
Honestly, I've been kind of itching to talk about AJ because as much as I don't, like, nothing sort of excites me in the Fed to a degree, but when I heard AJ was done, like, I remember when they, at the Royal Rumble, he takes the gloves off, and then he like, no, I'm not doing it. But then just the other day, he actually did it. And then they're saying, okay, Hall of Fame, blah, blah, blah. Part of me is like, oh my God, is this my, like, indie darling from back in the day? He finally has to retire. Because I remember watching AJ Styles when I was like 13, 14, like 2001, right?
Yeah, I mean, so, he was right there. I don't know where he got his start. I would have to actually go back and look. But I remember him in WCW there at the end with as Air Paris and Air Styles, whatever they called them. And he's got such a heartwarming story with him and his wife, his 4 children. And he's one of the few, Sting's another one that you never hear a bad word said about. Now, granted, there was no comparison of the two as far as an in-ring style and who was a better performer. But I mean, there's not a lot of guys that make it to that level that you don't hear at least 1 or 2 people complaining about. And
the only things I can think about when it comes to anything close to controversy with AJ Styles is the gay community comment. But that's all he said. He just said it in a funny way where everyone kind of laughed it off. But it was like, that's the closest he's got. Do you remember hearing this interview?
No.
No. It was a long time ago. It was on like a Jock Shock radio kind of call-in show or whatever. And one of those guys was like a Howard Stern and was like, oh, did you know that you're really popular in the gay community? What would you say attributes to that? And AJ just goes, the gay community, and then they move on. And that was it. And that, I think, might be the closest AJ ever got to a controversy, but no one was ever like, it was more comical than ever. Like, no one, I know even gay people, they were like, no, that's funny the way you said it. That's hilarious.
Yeah, well, honestly, that was probably not a
that's the closest that man ever got,
Now, reporters are good at doing that, and I'll give you a quick example because we don't get political here. I'll just give you a quick example. And it's been, I don't know if you remember or not, however many years ago it's been now, when people were wanting to boycott Chick-fil-A of all places because the owner, something he said, but he keeps them closed on Sunday. So his employees, they don't have to go to church, but it gives them the option. If they want to go to church, they can, because Chick-fil-A is closed on Sunday. Yeah. And the reporter, set him up and asked him how he felt about it. It was either gay marriage or abortion. One of the two, I don't remember. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. But you're asking a guy who is Christian, very publicly a Christian, what he thinks about something like that. And the guy was very graceful in his answer, but making it clear it wasn't something he agreed with, blah, 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 blah. And then everybody's going, oh, man, Chick-fil-A, man, fuck you. The reporter did that shit on purpose because he already knew where he stood.
I think for AJ, it was more, from what I've heard about AJ, I don't think he has any let's say misgivings or whatever you say. I don't think he's got a bad bone in his body. I think it was one of those interviews where like you're like, okay, I'm here to talk about wrestling, WrestleMania, whatever. I'm sorry, what did you just say? I think it was one of those questions. And that's how everybody took it. And I think that's what makes AJ so charming is even when someone's like, hey, let's poke the bull. Let's try to get a controversial statement out of this person. The way he answered it was more like comical, like in a general sense, than it was like, oh, we got him, gotcha, ha ha ha. AJ was just like, huh? What?
Did you ever hear about his meeting with Vince McMahon about his name when he came in?
Let's hear it.
It's quick. He said that, when he went in Vince's office to sit down and meet, I don't know if it was the first time, but it was like in the first initial process of him coming in. And Vince was like, well, we're thinking about this for your name. And he's like, you call me whatever you want to. I don't care. He goes, but this big AJ right here on he said, I raised my shirt up and showed him the AJ on my tattoo. And he's like, yep, guess you're AJ Styles. And, that's how the name got kept. But, I'll be honest with you. I love AJ. I always have. Did not think he would make it to where he did all those years ago. Because when he started, we were still in the land of the giants with the Hall, the Nash, the Sid Vicious, Scott Steiner, and Lex Luger, blah, blah, blah. I could go on and on. People that was in the WWF as well. And, I was happy for him. I mean, he seemed genuinely happy. He explained why he didn't take the gloves off and how he waited to take the gloves off because he knew he was going to be in Georgia. And, my hat's off to him. He seems like a genuine guy, and you've never heard anybody say anything otherwise.
Now, this is where we can start kind of bickering back and forth over AJ and make it fun. I'm going to make a controversial statement. People say he's one of the best of all time. And while I'll say in ring he doesn't hold a candle to some of the best promos of all time.
Oh no! So you beat me to that. So you're not going to upset me with that. Cause I was getting to that.
Okay, so I would put AJ Styles under the Steamboat Hall, the Ricky Steamboat Hall of Fame, the Ricky Steamboat wing of the Hall of Fame, like Mr. Perfect, those kind of guys. AJ goes next to those.
Kurt Hennig could talk. I don't know what you remember, but Kurt Hennig could talk.
No, I know, but I'm talking about those kind of guys where it's like I remember Kurt Hennig more for his like perfect ring work, if you will.
That might just be the way I view it. Well, we'll get to going what's going to be happening here soon, and us going back and maybe checking out and getting the old DeLorean and go back in time and take a road trip per se. Man, we'll get into that in a little bit, but yeah, I mean, Steamboat was Steamboat. I met him on multiple occasions. Nice guy, great in the ring. You're 100% right. One of the worst promos of all time. If you were, I don't know how old you would have been back then in like the early 90s, but when he came back, when he had the run with Flair, the three matches with Flair, it was 89. That's when it was. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they gave him this horrific WCW theme song talking about he's a family man, loves his wife, and even at like 18 years old, I'm looking at that going, well, what the fuck are we listening to? It's like Dustin Rhodes, where they call him the Natural. I'm like, but yeah, you can.
It's like you can use music to show that you're more of a traditional person. You know what I mean? Like you use a certain type of country song and made it sound okay. Now you're a working man and you're in every okay. But yeah, just having song lyrics that are like, I love my wife, my kids okay too sometimes.
But that's what made Shawn Michaels to me so good. Not only was he, amazing in the ring and could put a good match on with, anybody. He could have probably brought Gorilla out of retirement and put a good match on with him, as good as he was in his prime. But the man could just piss you off to no end. Between everything he would talk about on the microphone, and then the later DX stuff, which to me was by then I'm in my early 20s and I'm laughing my ass off at everything they're doing. But yeah, I mean, no, that was AJ's. But that's a detriment, but it's also a plus to AJ on, that Southern accent, not great promo that he had, shows you how good he was in ring to get as over as he got. To me, Steamboat. The matches Steamboat had with Flair, the matches Steamboat had with Flair will always go down in history. That 3, and you listen to them talk, and they tell you they had better house show matches in the '70s than they did those 3. But my first remembrance of Ricky Steamboat, like remember was when he was teaming with Jay Youngblood, and they were a fabulous tag team. And but they both had the kind of the same promo style. Jay being an Indian got a little bit more louder. He was actually an Indian. He wasn't, whatever.
Italian or whatever.
Jay Strongbow was, yeah. Jay Youngblood, and Jay Youngblood, Wahoo McDaniel.
It got a little back then. Those
guys the NWA had were legit, Indians from descent. But yeah, those, if you go back watch some of those matches they had with the Briscoes, Sergeant Slaughter, and Don Kernodle. They were a great tag team, and that's what I enjoyed Ricky more as. He's got that WrestleMania 3 match under his belt that everybody still talks about. He's got the 3 with Flair, people still talk about. And after that, he went back to WWF again for a very subpar run. Then he comes back to WCW again, and that's when he winds up hurting his back and retiring. But this is about AJ, and they're talking about people are like he's going to be a headliner. I'm like, I love AJ. He's not going to be the headliner. And I don't know if it's going to be Cena or somebody else, but they're talking about Cena possibly inducting him. And I don't, I know they had their little WWE thing, and I know that I said that was my match of the year for last year because of the emotions it sparked. But to me, if I'm picking who should induct AJ, with that would be a crowd, to get the crowd popped, would be Kurt Angle.
See, that's not who I was thinking at all. But the person I was thinking doesn't work for their company, so it would be a little hard.
Well, that's kind of I was keeping that all of that in mind and thinking about it, because a lot of people, either they don't know or haven't watched it, and some may have watched it and will still disagree with me, and that's okay. It's what wrestling is. But Kurt Angle had tremendous matches in WWE. He did. But I thought his best work came in TNA after he went there with Joe, with AJ, and some of the other guys he wrestled. I thought Kurt Angle's best matches happened in TNA.
I was thinking Joe, to be completely honest, because it's like Joe and AJ were like, you know what I mean? They were always sort of side by side. I wouldn't say they were neck and neck, because I don't know if they were ever like rivals, let's say, but they were always like, one was there and the other one was there. So it would be cool to see both, but I don't know if WWE would let Joe come do a speech.
Well, the thing is, like I told you, we talked about it, the whole Edge thing with, Cena's retirement tour, and, Tony Khan got interviewed about it, and he was asked, if anybody reached out, and he's like, no, they didn't. And they're like, well, if they had, would you let him do it? And he's like, I'm sure we could have worked out a deal. So to me, that was Tony throwing the olive branch, if you will. It's like either that or he's just trying to play nice, whatever, for whatever reason. It don't matter. But, I'm sure with it being Samoa Joe and AJ Styles and Tony being the big fan he claims to be, I'm sure they could work out something. But I think of it a couple of ways. I think of it as somebody he's got history with. And also, I'm thinking promoter wise in my head, Joe's not going to sell a lot of tickets for the Hall of Fame, and Kurt Angle would, as inducting AJ Styles. It's kind of like when Ric Flair inducted the Great Muta, I'm like, why in the hell is Flair inducting the Great Muta? And that undoubtedly should have been Sting. There's nobody else in the U.S. American wrestler that should have inducted Muta other than Sting. And, they did real well with him. They let him do his thing. Taker come out. They had all the people come out and giving him clapping. The send off, that tribute package they did with Creed Hire was, if you haven't seen it, if you weren't watching Raw, it's on YouTube. I would suggest you go watch it. It showed a lot of stuff from his TNA days, his Japan days, Bullet Club days. They covered everything in that. That's one thing WWE, nobody can take away from them, man. That production value they do with those videos, man, that's That's some good shit right there. They got it down with that. But so I mean, what do you think? I know you said you were going with Joe, but take Joe out of the equation because of the AEW. Who else do you think should induct?
Maybe my brain is focused on a single match, but I would put like a Christopher Daniels or a Jeff Jarrett. I'm just thinking of someone that was around when he was younger that can kind of tell that story, because that's sort of interesting. When I met AJ, I was already in the business 20 years, and now look at him, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I mean, there's if you take the AEW people out of the equation, there's a lot of people that they have there that they can do it. I mean, they could let Abyss do it because he made his appearance Monday night.
That's very true. I forgot about Abyss.
They got,
and he's well spoken too.
They got they got the working agreement with TNA, so Kazarian could do it. I forgot what the referee goes by in WWE, but he was Rudy Charles in TNA there for a long time. He's there. Rockstar Spud, I forgot what the hell WWE called him. He's still behind the scenes doing something.
Drake Maverick.
Why
do I know that? Why do I know that? I don't like it.
Petey Williams has been behind the scenes with WWE for 5 or 6 years. Him and Abyss came in about the same time. There's a ton of people that could really do it, but like I said, for my promoter hat going on, and for the just for somebody that has history with him, that had great matches with him, my choice would be Kurt Angle.
Yeah, that might be the best headline sort of grabber, Kurt Angle's coming back for one more speech. Blah, blah,
Kirk
blah.
Angel.
Kirk Angel.
Do you remember that?
But
Do you remember that Jericho promo when he was calling him Kirk Angel?
No, I thought as soon as you said it, I thought I messed up saying his name.
No, that's an old Jericho reference when they were feuding in WWE. But I'll ask you a rhetorical question.
Okay.
What major company did he have the biggest impact in?
AJ.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? What company did he have the biggest impact in? Okay. So I'm gonna say this is a biased answer, but I'm gonna say his biggest splash. If AJ was a rock and we threw him in the company pond, I think he's gonna make the biggest splash in New Japan, because when he came in, he had arguably the best version of the Bullet Club. He had the Bucks, he had Gallows and Anderson, he had all those guys. Like even Tom Tonga was 8 years younger, 10 years younger than he is now, whatever it was, and was better. Everyone was leaner. It was such a more focused faction, and they just to the moon, just pumped this guy right up the card.
And you just went in further on people they have that could induct him. I mean, Shinsuke doesn't speak the greatest English, so he's not going to be able to do it. But Tama Tonga's there. Finn Balor, Bullet Club wise, and Finn I know he's got the Irish accent, but I mean he's very well spoken. He could do. There's so many different people they could choose for that role to. But my little rhetorical question was the TNA. I guess you call it that. So.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Personally, when I think about it, when AJ came in, yes, he's AJ Styles, but
and Bobby Roode is there too. There's another one. I'm sorry to keep interrupting you. Every time we start. There's so many people there that from his past they could do.
Okay, so AJ Styles coming to WWE is sort of like when WWE back in the day started getting all the best territorial guys. So it's AJ's a phenomenal talent, and when you put him on any roster, he stands out. But when you put him in a roster with Roman Reigns, with Brock Lesnar, you know what I mean? He's not as shining of a light. Like when he's in New Japan, boom, he's the brightest light. When he's in TNA, he's one of the brightest lights. But when you have him in the WWE roster, it's he did good in WWE, but he didn't you know what I mean? Develop anything bigger than himself.
I hear you, but
I don't want to see it as an insult,
No, I mean, when he came out, the rumors were there that he was coming, and then he came out in the Royal Rumble. And, of course, I forgot when he got eliminated, but he got eliminated nonetheless. And I was worried. I was worried about how they were going to use him because, that Vince was still in charge. He was never fond of the smaller guys. And, no, he didn't have that TNA run, or he didn't have the New Japan run, but he had the title a couple of times, and they did a lot more with AJ Styles than what I thought they would do. So,
yeah, that's very fair. I think AJ probably applied himself in the WWE way the best, because out of everyone to come over, AJ just to the moon.
Yep.
Nakamura fluttered, some of the other New Japan guys fluttered, Balor kind of, you know what I mean? Like, AJ was the only one to be like, nope, I'm the best. Boo, right up the card. I'm always consistent. I'm always great. No fluctuations. AJ Styles.
Well, watching his tribute video, I don't remember who he beat for the title the second time, but then it hit me that his first title reign, he had beat Jinder Mahal, and I'm like, oh dear God.
Yeah, there's periods of wrestling that you go, oh yeah,
Well, that's not to offend anyone. Let me preface it with that, but it was very well known that they were getting ready to do that tour of India, and kind of like they did with Khali back in the day, they put the title on him, to go over there for that tour and try to sell more seats. They did the same with Jinder, and
they've been doing that. I was reading a book that. Like a historical book about wrestling, and they said, oh, we're giving the belt to Bruno Sammartino so we can get more I forget the specific word, but it was like a synonym for like foreigners. And it's like, looking back, Bruno Sammartino is not necessarily someone you would call, a foreigner, but that's the way they do it. We're going to Puerto Rico, let's put it on a Puerto Rican champ. We can have a heel invader coming to, you know what I mean? It's such an easy story. It's been done for a century now, I guess.
Yeah, and I saw something earlier on a different topic, that said, because all these rumors are flying around that Vince might want to try to buy him back with some Saudi investors or whatever. Like, and people are so pissed off they just can't admit Vince McMahon created professional wrestling. Vince McMahon did not create professional wrestling. Vince McMahon created sports entertainment. Let's get the two. Let's just clear that shit up. I mean, now he helped put professional wrestling on a wide scale map when he was still building sports entertainment, but professional wrestling was going strong before Vince McMahon ever came along. In my opinion, and I don't know what you never know what would have happened, but I think if Vince hadn't done what he did, I think all the territories would still be going strong.
I'm going to say something that might sound weird for younger viewers. Professional wrestling survived 2 world wars, a Great Depression, a mass immigration across to the New World. Like, when you look up history of professional wrestling, it goes back to like 1860s and Irish immigrants and blah blah blah. Like, it's been look. I love saying this to people. Professional wrestling is older than rock and roll. It's older than jazz. It's older than film. Like, it's older than the light bulb. I might be wrong on that one. I'm not too good on that kind of history. But like, yeah, I think if Vince didn't come along, it wouldn't be televised wrestling the way we have it. But I think it would still be the way that it's always been. If you go to other countries, they still do it the way we did it back then. We have touring companies. We go to all the towns. We do these little tricks. Like, yeah, Vince created, I will agree, sports entertainment, and then they branched sort of away from each other.
And, finishing up with AJ, he did a podcast within the last couple of days to where he confirmed he was not going to AEW. He wasn't going anywhere else. He was staying with WWE as a trainer in the back. That's what he wanted to do, was get the next talent ready to come up. And, and good for him, because, if you're going to go through all that and say you're retiring because you got XYZ, Gallows or Anderson one was talking about they were kind of trepidatious about going to Raw because they weren't really sure he was retiring, and they hadn't got a chance to talk to him in a while, like fully talk on, about stuff. And he said, AJ looked at him and said, no, man. He goes, I'm not saying I'll never get back in the ring for a one-off or something if they ask me to. He said, but, I got severe neck pain. My body hurts. I want to spend time with my kids. And, that's what he said. He said he was going to stay there as a trainer. He'll
do a Royal Rumble in 3-4 years. He'll have a little spot. He might do, if they do like a big Saudi show, he might do a tag match. Because, hey, Shawn Michaels came back. You know what I mean? Some of these guys that have been retired came back for some Saudi money. So
if he watched that Shawn Michaels match in Saudi, then that will change his mind. He'll be like, nope, I'm good.
Well, we don't know how many zeros were on that paycheck. So,
well, I mean, in Shawn's defense, that was not his fault. Taker had talked about that possibly being his last match because of getting up there, and he's like, this be like riding a bike. Us four guys, we've done this so much, and like a minute into the match, Triple H like does something to his bicep or his arm. And then Taker gets hurt, and and Kane's mask comes flying off, and there's Michaels who's been out of the ring for 10 years, and now he's bald, and having to carry a match, and it's like, it's Shawn Michaels. So if it'd been somebody else other than Michaels, dear God, how bad would it really been? But Taker was like, after that match, he was like, yep, I can't go out like that. We ain't finishing that way. So, but to finish it up with AJ, where do you think he ranks? Do you think he is a Mount Rushmore generational talent, an all-time great, or just an elite era definer?
I think this is going to sound mean, but I don't mean it in a mean way. I think AJ will be a little forgotten in a few years, in the same way that, like, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, I'm going to keep comparing him to that because I think that's a good sort of comparison. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat is remembered fondly. Everybody mentions him a lot, but he doesn't have that same splash that Ric Flair had or Dusty Rhodes had. You know what I mean? I think he's going to be known as one of the greatest, but not the greatest. That he'll always have someone that like a Roman or something that kind of nudges him out.
Well, this is what I'll give AJ. He's not a Mount Rushmore talent. Depending on who you talk to, the boys are going to tell you he's an all-time great. And to me, I go to tier 3. I go to the elite era. He defined an era. He helped usher in, what we see to today's style. But, now I will tell some of these kids it's on AEW and NXT and anywhere else you watch that are, 25 to, 22 to 30 years old, and they got the flab hanging off of them a little bit. Go look at a 48-year-old AJ Styles with neck pain and body pain and the shape that band's in and the way he could still wrestle. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. But
I'm trying my best.
AJ's not a top 10. He's not a top 5 as far as greatest of all time. He's one of the greatest complete wrestlers we've ever seen. But it goes back to what we talked about a minute ago. AJ's a great wrestler. He was not the greatest of sports entertainers. To talk somebody into the arena.
Part of me wants to start a little tier list of some of these people. I would put AJ as an A plus, A or A plus player. He's someone, if he's on the card, he'll move tickets, but he's not the person that will go, let's get, like he's not a character. So I wouldn't put him in the S class with people like Flair, let's say. I would put him as a solid A plus.
You're just a B plus player. I love AJ Styles. I'm not knocking him, but just to give my honest opinion on that, I think what's down the road for his legacy per se is you're going to have the boys and the girls in the back talking about him very fondly, especially as if people come in on an NIL deal that never watched WWE, they pulled him off the track team or what have you, and he's one of the trainers, and they really start to like AJ and think a lot of AJ, like what you hear everybody else talk about. They'll go back and they'll watch his matches. If he's mentioned on TV, if they hear it right, somebody might go YouTube a match, but he's going to leave a lasting impression with his contemporaries now and the class that he's getting ready to start training. So he will be remembered fondly in the business. He will be remembered sporadically through fans, in my opinion.
I think he'll be one of those hidden gems in about 15 years, 20 years. People are going to go, hey man, you gotta check this guy out. It's like showing people old Jackie Chan movies. You know what I mean? Like you'll be remembered fondly, but it'll be sort of in a, hey, have you heard of this guy?
Well, and the match that I can't say everybody wanted, but AJ begged for it for the 9 of the 10 years he was there, trying to get Shawn to come out of retirement one more time to make up for that debacle in Saudi with a tag team match. But even at Shawn's age, and as good as AJ is however you want to word it, and as good as Shawn was, I think Shawn would have had enough left in the tank, and AJ would have been good enough at the time for them to have one hell of a match. Kind of like Flair versus Michaels. Michaels was by far head and shoulders above Flair, match wise, Flair's age, his body shape, and everything else. But Flair was still good enough to get in there and follow Michaels and let Michaels do what he used to do for Sting and some of them other people. And, and it was a great match, and God only knows why Flair couldn't just be content with that. And then he had to go do all the other shit that he did. But
I think Flair had more. Yeah, I think he had alimony to pay, I believe is how they pronounce it.
Well, and the only thing I'll say in Flair's defense on that is, you can't, unless you get injured and can't go anymore. And it was very obvious with the match when Michaels, Flair could still go. He wasn't the Ric Flair of 1989, but Flair could still go. He could still lead a match with the right people. And, it was Vince's decision that said, you're going to retire. It wasn't his.
Yeah, this was something I was thinking about when everybody's been talking about AJ. In New Japan, there's a few guys that have been around for a long time, and when they come out, it's a bit sad. You know what I mean? Like it's like, yay, I'm excited to see them, and then you see them walk and you go, oh, you know what I mean? You don't want that feeling with your company or your wrestlers. You don't want someone to go out with a limp, a prominent limp every night. They limp the same limp. Because that's gonna make fans go, oh, I don't know if I want to see this guy. Like now I'm out of the show and I'm just sad at what I'm seeing. This old man with a broken ankle trying to, still work. AJ went out on good health, at a good time. You know what I mean? Let this go. If he's got good luck, he'll never wrestle again. Other than, I think in like a tag match and like a Rumble. Maybe a Survivor Series match,
I can completely see in the next couple of years, him training somebody and they think he's really good, and them doing the whole, somebody goes to the training facility to beat up somebody and AJ steps in, and then you get the tag match, it comes in. I can see that angle in a couple of years, but I'll just say this: congratulations to Alan Jones, AJ Styles, on a phenomenal career, and I've enjoyed it. Thank you, sir. I wish you all the best and, and living your life finally. So my hat's off to AJ Styles. Anything else on that, Paul?
I saw a video where the girls the women on the roster call him Uncle Alan. And he's starting to get a little teary-eyed because he's like, no, little do they know I love this because I'm not their dad. I'm their cool uncle. He's like, by saying uncle, they look up to me. But they're not like, I'm still cool. I'm not dad. You don't have to. So I thought that was really fun of them to say it and him to sort of recognize it, to be like, no. AJ Styles is cool. Like we can go mess with him. We can go have fun. So seeing that's how the roster views him. Yeah, that's really good to see.
Well, I don't have a hat on, but tip of the cap. So, but speaking of Monday Night Raw, we'll get into this. I was going to hit this first before we started getting me all misty-eyed on AJ, but let me try to compose myself here. Well, the Vision takes yet another hit, and before we get into that, Killer Cross, Karrion Kross, whatever the hell you want to call him, was on a podcast earlier in the week. It's been in the last 2 days because this is Thursday, but he was sitting there being interviewed by the guy, and his phone kept going off, and the guy kept looking at it, and he finally looked at him. He said, "You need to take that," and he's like, "No, I'm good, man. I'll return it later." And he's like, "Well, who is it?" And he's like, "Well, I'm not going to show you the message, but I'll show you who it is." And this is on air, it was recorded, and it was Paul Heyman.
Oh,
You know, and Heyman still does stuff in the back. He's not just the Oracle or the wise man or the advocate or whatever. Speaking of which, Brock Lesnar came out on Monday Night Raw and got absolutely no pop. That's the first time I've seen that in a while. I mean, just his music hit and nothing. Anyway, but they're doing that triple threat at the beginning of the match between Bronson Reed, Jey Uso, and the original El Grande Americano. Gracias. God, Chad Gable's hysterical. But and Bronson Reed, and from everything I have read, was supposed to go over in that match. And if you watch it, one of the two had the other pinned, and Bronson come in and went to break up the pin, and it was very subtle. It wasn't nothing, and that's nothing major that he fell or he did whatever. It was just a matter of, with all that weight that he has and the way he did whatever it was he did, trying to knock Uso or Gable off the other one. Tori's flipping bicep, and it's like, I mean, if I was Logan Paul and Austin Theory, I'd be like, do I still want to keep doing this? Because let's look at this. The original storyline with Seth Rollins, Bronson Reed, and Braun Breaker was supposed to carry over to WrestleMania, and that's when they were going to turn on him. So you're supposed to have this Seth Rollins thing go all the way through WrestleMania, and then the Vision was going to turn on Seth at Mania. Well, then Seth did whatever it was he did to his shoulder. Legit. Oh, when he tried to do the coast to coast crap with Cody, and he dove into him head first versus doing the drop kick coast to coast and landed on his shoulder. Well, then you get Braun Breaker working out in a freak workout accident, and he, the hernia that's up in his stomach. It wasn't the little one downstairs. They actually had to go up. They had to, cut up in his gut to fix this thing. And that's a few months out of the ring. And now Bronson Reed. And it's just like, wow. Logan Paul, he's been there every week. So a lot of people can't really call him a part-timer anymore because he did sign a full-time contract this last one he signed, and he's been there every week. And he is a heat magnet. I'm wanting them to push Austin Theory back up the card. I like Austin Theory. But it's a matter of rebuilding him from what you did to him when you buried him after Vince left. So that's going to take a little bit for people to take him serious again. But with Bronson getting hurt, they called the audible and Jey Uso went over. So Jey Uso is now in the elimination chamber. So, but between the text with Karrion Kross and it makes you wonder: is this bad luck? Does it expose how thin the depth was in the faction? Being built around the bodies like that. I mean, three injuries like that's kind of freak to me when you get a faction together like that. But
yeah, that's what are the chances statistically all three faction members get injured roughly the same amount of time? But saying that, is this a simple case of keep it simple? We don't mention anything. We don't mention anything at all, and then we wait a couple months, depending on how long they need to come back. And then we just arrange it all the right time and have all three of them come back and go, haha, we told you we'd be back. Haha. And just don't mention it.
Well,
don't bring it up. Don't say their names.
Yeah. Seth has been, it's been questionable whether he would be cleared by Mania. Braun Breaker it doesn't sound like he's going to be cleared by Mania. And from what I've read, Bronson Reed's going to be out 6 to 8 months with this torn bicep.
Yeah.
Or tricep, whatever it was he tore.
It's too long. Like if they were 2-3 months, that's okay. But if it's almost all year, dead storyline, move on. We just give up.
Yeah, he's going to have surgery on it. Well, I can't remember if that was a torn bicep or torn tricep, but torn bicep. Yes, I just had to go back and look up at my notes. But again, he was supposed to go over and be in the elimination chamber because of how they, not glorified ain't the right word, but how much they pushed the Vision and had him on TV and down people's throats. And, like I said,
he's a good body for those type of matches because he can catch people off the.
Oh yeah. And like I said, Logan Paul and Austin Theory, nothing against him. I think Logan Paul has done very well for himself. He's got a great heel promo. And he's a lot better in the ring than a lot of people that hadn't been doing it as long as he has. But they're not going to carry that faction. and then, like I said, I have to laugh because, I like Aleister Black, but, they basically got Aleister Black, and when they put Zelina Vega with him, married, yes, if you didn't know that, people, but their entrances, they tried to play off Karrion Kross and Scarlett, and and that entrance that Scarlett and Karrion Kross had, if people didn't see it, I mean, Vince just screwed him from the get-go when he brought him up from NXT. He didn't get, he didn't bring any of that with him. Scarlett wasn't even on TV with him for a while, and they bring him out after he had ran through the entire NXT roster, had the title twice, and only lost it that one time. And then they bring him out, and I get Jeff Hardy's a former WWF champion, but he wasn't he wasn't that Jeff Hardy at the time. He was back in the the tag team division with his brother, and you got all this hype for your guy you're bringing up from NXT, and then you let Jeff Hardy beat him. And I just looked at the TV, I'm like, what the hell was that? And and they gave him the old demolition mask kind of thing to put on there for a little bit, and he got released. Then Triple H brought him back after Vince was gone, and then he said one of the podcasts I saw with him, he said they offered him a contract, but they didn't offer her one. And he was like, are we missing one here? And he said their response was, we will deal with her separately. She's a separate talent. And he's like, no, we are a package deal. And, so that kind of went back and forth, and they let his contract expire. They didn't, he wasn't fired. They just let it expire. And, he was getting over like crazy before he left, growing his hair out and doing the stuff, the crowd chanting, we want Cross, and, everything else. And I mean, I thought they made a mistake letting him go. I thought they made, bad mistakes with him for a long time. I liked him as Killer Cross in TNA that was the first place I saw him. So with Paul Heyman texting him, is that old Paul Levesque saying, hey Penguin, need a little help here, buddy. Go see what you can do. What do you think about the Killer Cross situation?
I think he's just found himself in one of those unfortunate positions where, like, you're talented, but you're in a big, like, small fish in a big pond. Like, he would be great in a slightly smaller company, but I don't know, for some reason in WWE, he just gets lost in the fray. Like, he's one of those guys that now they don't have the same position as, like, Aleister Black or a Rusev, but it's like you've kind of been lost in the shuffle. You're one of those guys that can't get any sort of traction, like serious traction, I guess I should say. But I don't know. Like, yeah, he seems like a good worker. I don't know what they don't like about him.
Well, the thing with him, and you brought up Rusev, and that's a great example. Because when that whole Rusev Day thing was going over, the crowd was just hot, man. The Rusev Day and all that stuff that just,
that's a perfect wrestling gimmick because it's stupid enough that people get it.
And they did. It got over, and then like they just like stopped mentioning it or whatever, and the crowd was still chanting it. But like anything else, it kind of goes away if you're not using it. And it's like, why would the guy's hot? Use him. See if he can maintain it.
There was a quote from one of the Dark Side of the Ring episodes where, it was Canyon's episode. And they were talking about, the guy went on and he said, WWE would never punish a talent or not use a talent for any personal reasons or any, like they were trying to walk back a couple of things with Canyon, but I was kind of giggling because part of me's like, you still do it. Like how do you goof up Rusev Day? You don't have calendars. You don't have ice cream bars. Hey, we're going to have special Rusev Day ice cream bars, and you can only buy them on Rusev Day. So go to your stores on Rusev. It all, you know what I mean? It all builds into itself. How do you fumble that unless you're doing that on purpose, right?
Well, I am also curious if we see Cross back in WWE, because it was rumored then that it was a work when he left. Mm-hmm. And I
remember, yeah.
His last match was with Sami Zayn. They had been feuding back and forth, and Cross's thing kept, he kept telling him, like, one of the matches they had, Scarlett even threw Sammy a pipe wrench to use on Cross. Not that she was turning on him, but that was their angle, that Sammy was, just as bad, if not worse, than he was. He just pretended not to be.
The whole evil hands thing.
Yeah.
That they do.
And, so he kept telling Sammy this, that, and the other. And then, the last match he had was, he lost to Sammy and said, okay, you're right, I'm wrong, whatever. But he did that evil ass grin when he looked at him, because it was, if Sammy won, Cross had to say he was wrong. And if Sammy won, lost, he had to say Cross was right. And, but with Sammy getting ready to turn heel, because they're setting that up pretty well. With Sammy getting ready to go heel, was this the slow burn of carrying Cross back? Who knows? I mean, I'll be interested to see, because I like Cross. I liked him in TNA. When I saw him there, he stood out above the rest. And that, to me, it's kind of like I said with Jade Cargill. It wasn't a knock on the company. She just had that WWE look. And, so I don't know. But anyway, moving on. Moving
up. What do we got next?
Swerve is a heel again. Full blown.
You know what I was thinking about this? I think Swerve, image-wise, works better heel, because he's got a real nasty face.
Oh, no, Swerve
is built, but he's just got, like, I was thinking about this. I wouldn't want to meet him in a dark alley. I would rather see Mark Henry in a dark alley, because Mark Henry still has a sort of jovial look to him. Swerve just looks like a dangerous person, and when he's heel, it looks like he's already mad at you.
Yeah, no, Swerve
not only
is
does he know you, he's mad at you.
I mean, they I'll give AEW this. They slow burn that for a few weeks with him and Kenny, and then they finally did the match last week, and Swerve beat him clean. It was no interference from Prince Nana, no weapons or whatever. Swerve pinned him clean. But instead of getting the handshake or pat on the back or the nod of respect, because Swerve was a baby face at the time, even though him and Kenny had their whatever issues. He went on to beat the ever-loving dog shit out of Kenny, and then put him through a table. And then he come out this week, and I like the promo he did. He was talking about, he goes, a couple of months back, I was sitting there talking to Hangman and, saying I regretted this and I regretted that. He goes, and I got to thinking about it. When I was doing all that, I was on top of the world. It was the best time of my career. It was the most successful time in my career. So the more I think about it, no, I don't regret none of it. I'm getting back to doing it. He's like, I see he was standing on the announce table. He's like, I see they reinforced the table this week after I drove Kenny's head through it last week. I mean, he cut a real great heel. I mean, I like him. And then, Prince Nana, who don't really say a whole lot, he come out and, was doing the heel crap really good. Anybody watched him in Ring of Honor knows he was a heel there, but he was doing his heel stuff again, and telling the announcers to move and this, that, and the other. And so now him, and he said something about Brody, Kenny calling Brody the most dangerous man in the AEW, and he said people need to realize he's still and always would be the most dangerous man. So it's setting up. Brody had something to say about that later, and so they're going to have them two go at it. But so that was it. But then They did the whole thing with MJF and Adam Page. Oh, I'm so sick of this shit.
Oh,
they're having a match at was it Revolution coming up? Is that the one? I could be wrong. Page won those he won all those number one contender matches. He beat Andrade, who made it to the finals, and he come out last week telling MJF he wanted to do a stipulation, and MJF's like, no. And then he threw it at him that if he lost, he would never challenge for the title again. And I'm like, oh, dear God, here we go again. Because you remember Cody did that.
And that's why I sort of like it, because everybody went, they did that before. And it might be a little, I know they did the time limit draw, which they've done before, but very rarely. I think this one's a good reoccurring one, because people will know last time they did it, they stuck to it. So there's something on the line. It's not like a baloney excuse. They seriously did it last time.
They did, but I'm going to give you my take on that, because they did it, but they did it a little bit different last time.
Okay.
And we'll get to that here in a second. They the way it was going to work was a 50-50 coin toss.
Mm-hmm.
It was, if it landed on heads, it was going to be Max's stipulation, which was the one-way DQ. Max could do anything he wanted to do, use any weapon he wanted to use, and if Paige did anything illegal, he got disqualified. Yeah. That was Max's stipulation, and of course, Hangman wants to do the Texas Death Match. Now, if he actually knew how to do a Texas Death Match, if they booked it correctly, I probably wouldn't have such a problem with it. But they go out there and do a last man standing match. It's all the fuck they do, and they call it a Texas Death Match. And if anybody wants to listen to it and listen and says, "Oh, that's a Texas," no, it's not. Look it up. What AEW does is not a fucking Texas Death Match. Look up the fucking rules of a Texas Death Match. But anyway, so MJF, they flip the coin, and this is the kind of stuff that I'll pick up that a lot of people want. I watch the details and stuff like that. The coin gets flipped. It lands on heads. Tony Schiavone looks down. It's heads. Well, nobody's watching. Tony picks up the damn coin and puts it in his pocket. Well, so Tony's, there you have it. It's going to be the one-way, whatever they called it, for Max's stipulation. And as Max is walking up the ramp, Paige gets on. Hey, you dumbass. Let me see that quarter you used. You don't think I trust you? That I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, Tony Schiavone's got the damn quarter. I watched him pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
And Max is basically telling him to go to hell. And Jet Speed walks out to keep you from going through the curtain, and then he goes to go the other way, and here comes Brody and Bandito and maybe somebody else. I don't know, but they back Max up
by the baby faces. Yeah.
Yeah. And they back him up to the ring, and Brody's got a hold of his hand, and he takes the quarter out of Max's pocket and gives it to Paige, and it's a double-sided coin. I'm like, was nobody watching when I watched, and when Tony Schiavone picked up the one he got? Okay. But anyway, so it's a double-sided coin, and Max like, oh, let's flip again. Somebody get a quarter, and Tony Schiavone goes, I'm getting word from Tony Khan. I'm like, oh, fuck me. Here we go again. But, he does the whole, I'm getting a word from Tony Khan because of Max trying to cheat, that we're not flipping the coin again, and it will be a Texas Death Match.
Oh, so silly. It's a silly way to announce it.
All right. Now, here's where they're doing something a little bit different. When they did it with Cody, they did it, and you go back and watch it. I don't remember the wording, if it was put in the contract or how they worded it, but the wording for what Adam Page has said is, I give you my word. So with it
I'll give you my word, I'll never do it.
That I will never challenge for the title again. So what does that do for? So what is now? Here's one of two things that's going to happen. Either Adam Page will win the title back because Max is going to film another movie, because he's in and out of Hollywood now.
Hollywood, baby.
Yeah, if Max is not leaving again for a while for movie wise, then I would be willing to bet that Max wins by hook or by crook, whether it's by Wardlow coming back or him hiring somebody, whoever, to come down there and help him, and he cheats his way to victory. And then what does that do for a few months to a year down the road? It sets up for a perfect Hangman heel turn for him to say, you know what? I don't give a shit about my word. That's my title.
Yeah, and then you can tell the story of like I know I said this, but like I'm now so driven that I'm willing to go against my word to go after it. Like you can show what kind of position the character is in at that point because they're willing to go against their morals.
Well, but you could also have it simple as somebody, because I'll give Hangman this. He comes across very smug, and this would be a great one-liner. You gave your word you would never challenge for the AEW World Title again. I lied. Simple. I lied, and I lied. But that's a great heel thing for him to do. If it's only his word that'll keep him from challenging for the title. if it's not in the contract. And like I said, the word parting of it never came in with Cody. So
they'll
anybody,
hold on to it for a while, and then they'll turn it when you're last expecting.
Yeah, and so like I said, I got to look it up. I know MJF is doing a lot in Hollywood these days. Do you think his crossover is helping AEW's brand at all?
I think MJF might be one of the best normal people kind of wrestlers, because not only does he have a great character, people understand immediately. He's very good on the mic. He's extremely athletic to the point, like, when I see him in his gear, I go, oh, crap, this guy. Like, Punk, I don't know, he's not looking great. MJF looks great. He talks the talk. He walks the walk. He holds the belt great. He dresses great. Like, everything about him is great. He could be the new Rock. And what I love is every time that he's given a little bit of, hey, we want to talk about wrestling, he's like, this is how you watch. This is where you watch. Come watch us. Come watch other people. These are the other people who are wrestling. But don't watch them because I'm better than them, because watch me. But it's like he's so good at the pitch. This is where you can watch us. This is when you can watch us. This is who I'm fighting. This is why I'm like, boom, 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 boom. And it's like, wow, you could have just put yourself over, but instead you're like, no, company comes first. If the company grows, I grow, we all grow. Like, that's really fucking smart, Max. Really, really, really smart.
It is, but I think the company is also missing the boat on it. Now, the reason I say that is, any time that, anybody from the WWE, WWF's been in the movie, even when Kevin Nash was in the Punisher for all of, 4 minutes.
Yeah.
They made the deal to be able to show the trailer and hype up the movie and this, that. The only mention of Happy Gilmore 2 that you heard on AEW programming was when Max mentioned it. There was no intertwine with that. There was no, so, and
yeah,
when
I can like even just show the ad or like, I know people hate when WWE does it, but if you say Happy Gilmore presents AEW, what is it? Like, that doesn't hurt, the image at all.
But he's not being promoted in these movies like as AEW star or AEW champion.
Yeah.
So I think down the road, if they start doing it correctly, it's got a possibility to really help them cross over and get more eyes on the product. And I'll compare it to. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I think they just need to be careful because WWE for a while had sort of like no one goes on anything. You're very strictly controlled. But do you remember when like WCW went on Family Feud?
Yeah. WWF
what? Come on! Like,
and TNA's done. TNA's been on Family Feud. WCW.
You're telling me you can't put? You can put. You can get a Canadian team and put it on Canadian Family Feud.
I was gonna say, damn, you got two teams with the Don Callis family. Put them on there.
And and you just slap some stuff together, and you can just do simple just do normal questions, because that'd be kind of funny to see Brody King, this massive person. And then the question is about, like, I don't know, stuff you put on your cat and he wins. You know what I mean? Like, that would be charming. It'd be endearing. You'd be like, yo, who's this massive guy? I got to watch him more. Oh, AEW, blah, blah, blah.
Well,
I think, MJF would be good. To wrap up, MJF would be great in positions like that. Put him on little shows, let him interact.
Put him everywhere. And, it was kind of the point.
Yeah.
I know this has been a few months back, but it might have been longer than that. But when Playboy first started going back in print, it was kind of the same concept that I was trying to get across. It's not, they got enough women in that locker room that if Playboy wanted to team up or they wanted to team up, now that they're back and, they'll never be as big as they were. I guess they could be if they were pushed right.
It just depends on how they present it. Because if it's just the girls doing like, ooh, we're doing scantily clad stuff for.
Well, that was the appeal of Playboy. Playboy was always the tasteful, the hustlers and the whatever.
There was worse ones. Yeah, but Playboy always had a like burlesque kind of feel, where it was like ooh la la, like it was always fun, I guess is the way. So you could do it, but yeah, I don't think Playboy. To be honest, I think the Attitude Era has put a sour taste in a lot of wrestling fans' mouths. So I think if AEW did a Playboy magazine, specifically that company, maybe they wouldn't like it. But if they did something similar, I wouldn't necessarily disagree. But like, I know what you're saying. Like,
to get eyes on the product, and I don't mean that.
Yeah.
And what we're, in the exact sense you might think of getting eyes on the product, but you got plenty of women in that company, and I mean, Harley Cameron for one. I mean, she shows just about everything on social media there is. So I know you've got women back in that locker room. Even though Playboy doesn't have the clout that it used to.
I'm just saying that brand might not bring the best sort of like I'm sure I'm not saying it would be a bad thing. I'm just saying that brand might have a bit of ooh in wrestling fans.
But on the flip side of it, if you're gonna pose nude, I mean, what other brand would you want to would get your name out there? What other brand is that synonymous with, that? But anyway, moving on.
I was gonna say they all have OnlyFans now and are making way more money.
Yeah, but you gotta subscribe to that. You can't go buy the magazine and take it to a con and get autographs. But
that's exactly.
Speaking of Playboy, with a quick plug, no, they don't do plugs. That's the other magazines. All right, Paul, what you got coming up? Tell them all about it and where they can find you on social, and where they can find you in your scantily clad trunks and
Oh, in 2 days, in February 28th is my return to the ring. I've challenged a tag team to a tag team match. And
have you announced your partner yet, or is it still a mystery?
Well, it's still a mystery to me at this point. I've put, I've asked the locker room. I've got into all the group chats. I've said, hey guys, like anybody? I don't know, if someone's thinking about it, but I haven't heard it back from anyone. So I'm hoping for the best. But you can catch me online at Paul Rogers Wrestling, usually a couple underscores in between them, but I have the same handle for Instagram, YouTube, anything that Paul Rogers is online. It'll be under Paul Rogers Wrestling. I don't use it all. I might have a Twitter that I don't use, but Instagram is where I'm mostly on, other than here.
Well, just to be fair, and I don't want you to think I didn't try to help you, man. I made a couple of calls. I pulled out the pink suit, got it dry clean. I pulled out. I'm not going to show it to you because, in case I ever get to use it. But I had me a special pink bat made to go with that suit, so that I would be ready to help you out. But I never got the call back. I never got my passport sent to me.
And the storm came, right? So you can't fly in the storm.
I just want to let you know I tried. I tried.
Okay. And that's all we ask, right? Is that you try.
And before we get out of here, we got a road trip coming up soon.
Buckle up, big boy.
No, I'm listening. Tell us about it.
Okay, so this might be too much information, but there's a lot of weekly news podcasts going on, and I felt like, hey, how do we do something? How do we gimmick up to separate ourselves a little bit differently? So we've decided on going for a road trip. And the idea for Road Trip Wrestling, the podcast, is every episode we are going to be watching a different professional wrestling company, whether it be WWE, whether it be New Japan or Stardom or whatever. Every episode is just going to be a different company. We're going to dip our fingers in. We're going to see what we like, don't like, and try to appreciate wrestling in its many forms and its many different genres that it supports. That's basically the main crux of it. We're going to watch an episode of the show, give you guys our honest review, what we liked, didn't like, and hopefully we learn a little bit more about professional wrestling in this road trip through the world.
And through our car, through our very special road trip vehicles, we have several, but we also have a very special RTW DeLorean. So in these stops, we will, and we will make some trips back in time as well to to see what we think might could still hold up today, and what might be missing, and or
Just
what
if
wouldn't
we
hold
went
up today.
back to, yeah, if we went back to 1974 and turned on the television and watched professional wrestling, would we enjoy what we see given our modern eyes? Does the AWA hold up? Does some of the old territories that I can't remember off the top of my head, if we watch them, would we enjoy a Chief Jay Strongbow match? It's going to be, I think they're going to be interesting questions, and we might get some interesting answers along.
Well, I can tell you the one thing we're not going to watch, because I already know it wouldn't hold up and it would not grab my attention, was you were talking about wrestling surviving through the wars and being before that and all. And if you don't believe me, you can check it out. Just Google some of those matches back. The main event for the title was always 2 out of 3 falls, and those matches would go 90 minutes to 2 hours, if not longer, depending on who your competitors were. So you bitch and moan about a 5-card a 5-match or 6-match WWE pay-per-view card. This was a 3-match card with a 2.5-hour main event. And no.
But hey, if we're in the right mood, maybe we find, because hey, if you look on YouTube, there's a lot of wrestling from the chase from like the 40s and 50s. There's a lot of archival footage. So if we just so happen to get our hands on some like Carl Gotch or some like 1920s stuff, we'll take a look at it and see sort of the evolution of the sport, and when things change, and hopefully we can get a different perspective on the whole genre that we seem to all enjoy together.
Yep. And right now we're planning, correct me if I'm wrong, we're planning on it at least once a month for a road trip, maybe twice if we're feeling froggy, I guess, depending on both of our schedules. And
it's just one of those, if people like it, we could always do more if it's something that has some legs to it, because even if we do it once a month, that's 12 companies. That's a drop in the bucket to the overall landscape of wrestling. So who knows where we will end up.
And this is the last teaser that we will give you. Just know that RTW is coming soon, and our first stop in Lodi, New Jersey for JCW.
It's not that far away.
No, it's not. And when you get in the comments, if you want, just where does AJ rank for you? Who's going to win this Texas Death Match? And like I said, our first stop is JCW. So where do you think RTW should hit next after that? And you can definitely comment when we get there. But you can catch us right here live weekly each and every Thursday night. I know we took a week off last week, and we're thinking about rebranding this one as well. So because Paul was not around when WrestleZone came along, and it seems like we're stuck with each other. So maybe maybe something that matches our personalities a little bit better, or do some stuff. I got some interviews I want to do. I've reached out to a few people, still waiting to hear back. And but the full episode is going to be on YouTube. The audio drops the next day on all major podcast platforms. You got anything else, Paul?
Nope, that's it. That's all.
Yep, that's it too. All right, for Paul, I'm Jason, and we'll see you next time.